Hi, and welcome to Managing Project Teams. I'm Dr. MARILYN Carroll, and I am going to be coming to you going over each lesson and divide it out between over the next 11 weeks. So sit back, relax, and listen, and give me some thoughts on this as well. So I'd love to hear from you. But let's get started. Managing project teams. I'm going to come to you from the sixth edition of Making the Team, a guide for managers. And this is a Pearson Education by Leah Thompson, who's the author of this book. So building teams is extremely important. And a lot of times people think that a team just comes together. No, it does not. We have to build our teams. And in order to get the most from those teams, building the right team, putting the right people together, it matters. So let's talk about it for a minute. What is a team? Well, um, Miss Leah defines the team as a group of people who are interdependent with respect to the information, the resources, the skills, and who seek to combine their efforts to achieve a common goal. Well, I agree with her on this particular definition. It is a group of people that come together. So think about a time that you come together with someone else to build a team. I remember when I was in high school, the team we built was a dance team. And on that dance team, we all looked for various different talents of the individuals on the team in order to make the most out of entertaining our audience in a way that made them come back constantly to get additional things from us. In building a team in business, when I worked in banking and finance, we built a team that was needed. I remember going in and having a goal that was given to me by the people that hired me for the team to straighten out some particular challenges that were there. And from that, I had to do an excellent job of putting together the right team to achieve the goals. And sometimes those teams that we put together for a particular task or goal is not the same team we need to move forward with. So more to come on that a little bit later, all right? So moving forward, part two of what is a team. There are five key defining characteristics of a team. Teams exist to achieve a shared goal. Team members are interdependent regarding some of the common goals that they may have. And teams are bound and stable over time. That means they grow and they become more cohesive over time because of relationships they may build on those teams. Teams have the authority to really manage their own work and internal processes. And it may not seem like that, but they really do because in the end, there's going to be a certain chemistry that a team builds and bonds with, and they use that to kind of build, or not kind of build, but to build their next steps or how they're going to achieve their goals. And also, we have to remember that teams operate in that social system context, and that's what I'm talking about when they come together and they find that special ingredient that is so awesome for them that it makes them click and makes the work continues or gives it its rhythm. And I say the same thing for any professional level, football, basketball, baseball, hockey team. If the team dynamics have to be right, the characteristics of the team and knowing what the goal is important. Some people know, yes, if it's a professional team, we're all about winning. But at the same time, there are individual goals on the team as well that need to be accomplished in order for that team to get the best out of what they're trying to achieve in order to win. Um, Individual needs are extremely important in every team. And that's why it's important that the team gets to know one another and understand each other's needs. Okay. So as we go through to the next slide, why should organizations have teams? You ask. Well, check this out. Four challenges of the future that point to the importance of team are information technology. Hey, we are in that information technology spirit at this particular time. Competition, globalization and culture, and then there are multi-generational teams, meaning right now we have a plethora of people that were from the 60s, from the born in the 70s, born in the 80s, born in the 90s, and born in the 2000s that are working together on teams. And we're seeing the slack off of some of the people that were in the earlier times, the 60s and the 70s, that may not be part of those teams, but some of them still are. They may be in leadership positions or things of that nature, but teams are still there. And those multi-generational teams have some commonalities, and we need both in order to achieve the goals of the organization. A lot of times those older on the team or been around or for quite some time offer information about the team and the work and the company dynamics that's there. And globalization and culture, like I said, culture, those multi-generational teams hit on a lot of the information and things that are needed from a multi-generational perspective that they want to discuss and they understand and know about before that new group came on board. So you may ask, so Dr. Carroll, what is the task focus of the team? Well, let's start here. Teams work on three types of tasks. There are tactical teams, there are problem solving teams, and then there are creative teams. Okay, so tactical teams are those teams that are responsible for completing a process that has already been established. Whereas problem solving teams are those teams put together to solve a unique problem that the organization or group may be having, and that team is put together to solve that problem. And then the people that work on that team have various different things that they're doing. And then there are creative teams that are put together to design or develop things out of something that may be a little of nothing. They may be put together to build a new solution to how the team is constantly working, even though the process the technical team may be working on now may be different than what the creative team comes up with, because the creative team may come up with something that is a little more effective, less strenuous, less resources needed to resolve that problem. So let's look at this in a little more detail from the text. So again, what is the task focus of the team? Well, technical teams, as I stated earlier, they're directive, highly focused tasks, role clarity, and their well-defined operations. The threats of that team is role ambiguity, lack of training standards, and communication barriers in tactical teams sometimes. And that could be because one happens to do a process a particular way, and then another may not. They may still achieve the same goal in doing that process, but may do it in a different type of way. And so problem solving really focuses on, for the teams that are built for that, they're focused more on the issues, and they separate the people from the problem. They consider the facts, not the opinions, and they'll conduct thorough investigation and suspend judgment. They're there to solve a problem, not to do it the way they want to do it. They're there to figure out how it should be done so that there are not as many challenges as there could be with that particular challenge that they're working on. And then the threats to that type of team is failure to stick with the facts, fixated on solutions and not the whole picture of things. So they're so built on focus on, oh, what's going on here, and how do I really tackle this, or we really need to solve this problem, instead of, okay, don't just solve the problem, but come up with some creative measures so that we don't have to have this problem in the future. And they a lot of times succumb to political pressures, because some politics that may be involved with resolving particular situations like this could be, if we solve this problem, it may mean that instead of us needing 10 people to do work in this particular group, we only need 7, and somebody's going to lose out. Or instead of us needing resources out of team A, we really need these resources from team B. And then that puts team B in a bind for what it is team B thinks they need to accomplish. And so that could be a little bit of a challenge there. And so also from this particular perspective, they succumb to those political pressures, like I stated, but conformity information search. So how do we conform to this particular information based on what? Who's the expert, or what does the expert say about this particular task, and how do we solve that? And then we have that creative team, and they explore again possibilities and alternatives for the company or for the problem that they're up against. Now, some of the threats that these creative teams may have is production blocking or uneven participation that could become the challenge there. And so as we go on, we also see that there are formal teams, or let's go back to this. There's sudden crisis in back on the creative team. There could be also sudden crisis, unexpected events in which the organizations has virtually no control or perceive of limited fault or responsibility. And then there are also smoldering crises. And those are events that began as a small internal problems with organizations, and they become more public stakeholders, and over time escalate into crisis status as a result of inattention by management. And again, political structures could cause um, crisis to develop in these teams. And then there's the formal team. And we didn't talk about that before, but we have formal teams. And these are members who are brought together to prevent, prepare, as well as to be on call to handle crisis situations. In this particular way, we're talking about teams like Walmart and Hurricane Katrina. And we all know that was, quite recently, Hurricane Katrina and what happened there. And then there's the Apollo 13 Tiger team that was put together for that sudden crisis. And then there's the smoldering crisis. We got Cisco global recession. We had BP oil spill. Remember the oil spill in the sea and all of the problems we had that. And then we had Volkswagen. Some of you may not remember this, the Volkswagen emissions crisis and what happened in that particular situation. So improv teams are those teams, or ad hoc teams that really adapt to given situations and moment by moment. So it may be, okay, this is the way we're doing things now. And yes, things have changed. We're on a crisis. We're handling the situation 911. We got to change right quick because this is not going to work. We got more information and we need to adapt and change quickly. And so we saw that again with the SARS team for China, US Airways Flight 1549, back in the day when we had those crises, and the Chipotle E. coli crisis that we had that we had to put an improv team on, and Zika virus outbreak that we had, and now we have the coronavirus outbreak. And from those, we had to put together impromptu teams in order to handle this particular situation. And then we had the smoldering crisis, or those crises we had with the city of Flint, Michigan, leading disaster, and Wells Fargo phony accounts. So that was something. Wells Fargo, I happen to have been involved in that particular one, and having accounts that were set up in my name and money taken from various accounts because there was a phony event that occurred with that. And then let's talk about the types of team anonymity. What do we do when we're coming together? How is the authority in that team distributed in an organization? And we can see that managers lead teams. There's self-managing or self-regulating teams, and then there's self-directing and self-designing teams, and self-governing teams. And a lot of times we come across a number of those teams as we go through. And we have a lot of that going on now with the work from home. We may have many of the self-managing, self-regulating teams, or self-directing, self-designing teams, as well as self-governing teams. So we're seeing more and more of that come on the surface because of the coronavirus, or COVID-19 and the variants and things that we've been going through since 2020. And this is a figure that kind of shows everything and how they're going through the design of the organization, design of the team, and what's happening, and how well each of these have the things that they're going through. So executing the task, manager led, self-managing, comes across the gamut. But design the organizational content, that's just the self-governing work teams. And so we can see how things change based on the team design. Okay, for this one here, I would just pay close attention to the figure. And as you go through, look at, where's the areas of responsibilities for each of these different types of team. Okay. Now, observation about teams and teamwork. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. Well, teams should be the exception, not the rule, right? Meaning, with teams that come together, we have them here. They are here for a reason. Managers fault the wrong causes for the team failure. Don't do that. Experimenting with failures leads to better teams. Yes, teams are going to have problems. We all have problems. We all go through various things, and these things do come back to cause particular challenges for us, but that's okay because teams are going to experiment with failures sometimes. It's a part of the process. Conflict among team members is not always bad. Sometimes conflict can be good. For example, there's conflict because some members of the team are male. In this particular case, not picking on males now, they be males and they like saying different things, or they want to do things a different way, whereas females are on, they have divided. It's 5 people or 6 people on the team, 3 are females and 3 are males, and they decided, hey, the males want to do something differently than the females, and how do you go about it? So it takes more conversation and dialogue to see how do we come together. We see a lot of this with conflict on teams with our House of Representatives, our Congress, people that's leading organizations. That's why we have boards in or for organizations that are run by groups of people. C-suite, we got the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the CMO, all of those individuals that may or may not have the right answer. And so sometimes the board has to intervene to solve those problems. Okay. Strong leadership is not always necessary for strong teams. Some teams can really manage themselves without needing a particular type of leader to run them. As a matter of fact, you've got to know your team dynamics before you know what type of leader is best for that team. A lot of times people miss this and they go over it and they don't have the best type of manager for that team. Good teams can still fail under the wrong circumstances. So just because we have failure doesn't mean that it was bad, but we challenged the team with something that was just wrong for them to be doing. And we never should have put that forth and had them to do those things. And then team retreats will not fix all conflict between team members. A lot of times when there's chaos with the team and disagreement with teams, a lot of times managers will think that, you know what, we just need to have a team retreat and get people together and get them talking to one another, and that'll help solve the particular situation for the team. But sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes it's the team leadership, the ones that's over the team that are having problems, and those things sometimes we have a trickle down effect from that, and we have disagreement on the team because of that trickle down, because the two at the top are not getting along. It's like parents, if you're a parent out there, or you see your parents, or you happen to be involved in some of these situations where you're co-parenting, you will see a lot of that taking place where the two people just sometimes don't have it and they may be against each other. And the kids will choose, okay, now I'm going on that side there because this is what I want right now. And I know he's going to get mad at her and say this, and so we'll get what we want because they'll be so busy talking to each other about something that they'll forget what it is I just did. So I'm okay with this. And so that's another challenge that we have. And it's the same thing in work environments where we have these disagreements with teams. And because it may be from a management perspective, or it could be that just some of the wrong people, or the roles are just not clear. The job itself may not be clear. So what do leaders tell us about their teams? Well, some of the most common types of teams is that management teams, and they vary in size, varies dramatically in size. And then we have cross-functional groups. And cross-functional group project team groups are about an average about 11 or 12 people on the group, 11 to 12 people on the group. And then we have operations and service, and those size are they're modal teams, and the size of them may be 10, and the optimum size though of operations and service is about 5 to 6 people. So we want to keep that in mind, team size and what's the most comfort. And this is based on much research that has been done on this, and that's why we see some of the teams the way they are and what's happening with them. So team anonymity versus manager control, manager led is about 45%. And then self-managing is about 49%, whereas self-directing is about 6%. And this was back in 2016 when this survey was done. I would say now, here we are in 2021, and we're going to have more of the self-managing and self-directing and less of the manager-led teams, because it's pretty hard for managers to manage from a distance. And where we have a lot of people working from home, we don't need these as many manager-led teams. As a matter of fact, organizations have started deleting or depleting some of the managers, the middle managers, and going more for let's bring some bigger teams together and have like team leads and things like that instead of a manager. And then this tells us also about teams that team longevity is less than 6 months. It's about 7%. But we will see in the presentation here that 1 to 2 year period, it's about 38% the time span. 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 years is the time span for most teams, right in there. Over 5 years, a team being together, something's wrong. If a team has been together for over 5 years, you're going to have some challenges with that. The way they go about doing the work is going to probably be antiquated. The team is not moving maybe as fast as it needs to, or looking at things that they need to hop onto if the individuals on the team are not growing. If everybody is still in the same space and say it's been 10 years and everybody's still in that same space they were before, the same team, no new blood on the team, new people on the team, we might want to look at that because something is missing. And we can take a look at like companies like Flour Bakery Company out of Thomasville, Georgia, where we saw that they were just out of the loop on things. Kodak camera, out of the loop on things. Things just were not in the right position, the right place. Too many people, same people over. Everybody felt comfortable, love working with each other, family and all of that, but there needs to be some discomfort in order for there to be growth. If there's no good discomfort somewhere, it's rare. It's very, very rare that there's growth. So either the manager then has to be one of the managers that inspires growth, that's running that team. But if the manager is a manager that is not growing themselves, the team is not growing either. So that is a challenge. And we probably see this in many organizations. The most frustrating aspects of teamwork are really developing and sustaining high motivation. And there's not going to be high motivation in a team that's been together for over 7 years. They're just there to do their job, do it well, and move on. Well, we live in an age and a time where things change overnight drastically. Processes, new systems are around, all of that is happening. And for us to keep the same people, unless they're constantly growing with the processes, that could be a bit of a challenge for us. And then minimizing confusion and coordination with problems and fostering creativity and innovation. I have a company that works with the film industry, and we see a lot of things happening because now, due to the COVID-19 strand, the virus, the economy, people not wanting to go into movie theaters, things change. And if people are not really ready to make that change, I know that industry, they work together a lot, they stay together a lot. Those that's behind the scene, it's a constant thing. They understand their family, and they rarely make moves fast because they're accustomed to it. This is what they've been doing. And so this has totally probably been a sticker shock to them as to how they're going about having to do business at this particular time. And so what else is there? What tells us about their teams. What is the most frustrating aspects of a team, as we see in this particular slide, is that there are several different things. Developing high motivation. Motivation is, oh my gosh, that is a bit of a challenge for many teams, because they are just not, they've been around for so long to, it's just become a huge challenge for them. And that's what I would say. Motivation happens to be one of the key sticklers for many of these teams in the way they operate. So developing your team building skills requires a set of skills. One, accurately diagnosing the team problems. You have to know what your problem is, and you have to be able to accurately diagnose what that problem is, because if you don't, or if you can't, you're not going to resolve it. Sampling on the dependent variables and hindsight biases, don't do that. You got to sample the dependent variables and the independent variables to kind of know what's going on. And using evidence-based management. I know a lot of people think, what do I need these courses for? What is going on? What needs to happen? Well, that's some truth about going back and looking at what others have done and what the research says about things, in order for me to know how I could possibly may be able to handle the particular problem that I'm going through now, how I can attack it. And then third, expert learning, single loop versus double loop learning. Single loop learning versus double loop learning is important. If I'm single loop and one track mind, that's one thing. If I can look at this in various different ways, that's better. Inert knowledge problems. I know this, and this problem we could probably resolve in this particular way may not be sometimes the solution. So as we kind of pull this chapter together, we know that there is no magic formula to designing and maintaining effective teams. We know that. And there are several things we have to try, and that's why it makes education so important, that it gives us some of the variables we can look at in order to solve those problems and make sense of them, and do them in a way that's systematic instead of causing more confusion and conflict than it needs to. And then making the team takes a scientific approach to the study and improvement of teamwork. Well, team building does take some level of expertise and knowledge in order to get it right. And we see today a lot of teams that are put together that is just the wrong team. And like they say, people don't leave companies, they leave managers, because a lot of times the manager has maybe put together the wrong team. But that's where having an organization where people are able to really speak up and help professionally, and speaking up in a way that is responsible and yet complimentary, but not threatening to someone else, does make the team better. And so there are many misconceptions about teams and teamwork. Intuition and luck can only take one so far. You have to really know what's going on and what to look at in your teams in order to know what the challenge is, may or may not be. And so that's our time for this chapter. I hope that if you have questions, comments, if you need to know additional things, please reach out to me and ask the question, and I'll be so happy to help you through that. But I look forward to hearing what you have to say in our discussions, and let's talk about teams and what your thoughts are on the information that I covered here today. So that's it for now. Take care, and I'll see you on our next topic.